In a small, peaceful neighborhood where everyone knew each other's names and kids played freely on the streets, two young brothers named Marcus and Marcus were spending their afternoon just like any other day. They were 10 years old, full of energy, laughter, and endless curiosity about the world around them. The twins lived in a cozy house with their mom, Maya, who worked hard to provide for her family, and their dad, Derek Johnson, a man whose job was important but often kept him busy in faraway cities. On this particular day, Derek wasn't home, which meant it was up to Maya to keep an eye on the boys while she finished some chores inside. Marcus and Malik loved playing outside. Their favorite spot was the little park at the end of their street. It had swings, a slide, and plenty of open space where they could run around without bumping into anything or anyone. That morning, they had received a gift from their uncle: toy guns. These weren't ordinary plastic toys. They looked almost real, with shiny metallic finishes and intricate details that made them seem like something out of an action movie. 2. The twins. These toys were treasures, fueling their imaginations as they pretended to be superheroes or brave soldiers saving the world. As soon as they got the toys, they couldn't wait to try them out. "Let's go to the park," Malik exclaimed, already halfway out the door. Marcus followed close behind, clutching his toy gun tightly. Their mother reminded them to stay safe and not wander too far before heading back inside. She trusted her sons, knowing they were good kids who rarely caused trouble. Besides, the neighborhood felt safe, a place where neighbors waved hello and watched out for one another. At the park, the boys wasted no time diving into their game. They took turns hiding behind trees and pretending to sneak up on imaginary enemies. Laughter filled the air as they chased each other across the grass, completely absorbed in their make-believe adventure. What they didn't realize, however, was that someone nearby was watching them and growing increasingly alarmed. A few houses down, Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who spent most of her days sitting by her window knitting, noticed the commotion outside. Her eyes widened when she saw what looked like two children holding guns. At first, she thought maybe they were part of some school activity or community event, but as she squinted through her glasses, doubt crept in. The toys did look eerily realistic, and the way the boys moved, crouching low, pointing the guns at invisible targets, it all seemed so lifelike. Panic began to rise in her chest. Was this really just harmless play, or was something more sinister happening? Mrs. Thompson hesitated for a moment, torn between dismissing her fears and taking action. But then she remembered hearing stories on the news about dangerous situations involving firearms. Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if those weren't toys? What if someone got hurt? Unable to shake off her unease, she picked up her phone and dialed 911. Her voice trembled as she reported seeing two armed individuals near the park. She described the scene as best she could, mentioning that the suspects appeared to be young but emphasizing that they were carrying weapons. Within minutes, police sirens echoed through the quiet neighborhood. Neighbors peeked out of their windows, wondering what all the fuss was about. Marcus and Malik froze mid-game, startled by the sudden noise. Before they could react, a squad car screeched to a halt near the park. Two officers stepped out, their expressions tense and alert. One of them shouted, "Hands where we can see them!" The command startled the boys, who instinctively dropped their toy guns and raised their hands high above their heads. "What's going on?" Malik stammered, his voice trembling with confusion. Marcus stood beside him, wide-eyed and silent, unsure of what to say. The officers approached cautiously, their own firearms drawn. "Don't move," one of them barked, his tone firm and authoritative. For Marcus and Malik, the situation was surreal. One moment, they were having fun, lost in their fantasy world. The next, they found themselves surrounded by uniformed strangers who treated them like criminals. When the officers realized the weapons were nothing more than toys, their demeanor softened slightly, but the damage was already done. The boys were still handcuffed and placed in the back of the squad car, their protests falling on deaf ears. "We're just kids," Marcus cried, tears streaming down his face. "We weren't doing anything wrong." But the officers insisted they needed to sort things out at the station. As the car pulled away, neighbors gathered around, whispering among themselves. Some recorded videos on their phones, capturing the heartbreaking sight of two frightened children being taken away. Back at the house, Maya heard the commotion and rushed outside. By the time she reached the park, the police were gone, and so were her sons. Panic gripped her heart as she frantically asked bystanders what had happened. When she learned that Marcus and Malik had been arrested, she felt a mix of anger, fear, and disbelief. How could this happen? They were just kids playing with toys. Determined to find answers, she grabbed her phone and called Derek, hoping he could help bring their boys home safely. Little did anyone know, this seemingly ordinary afternoon would spiral into a story that captured national attention and revealed deep-seated issues within society itself. At the police station, Marcus and Malik sat side by side on a cold, hard bench in a dimly lit room. Their small hands were still cuffed behind their backs, though the officers had loosened them slightly after realizing the boys posed no real threat. The twins' faces were streaked with tears, their eyes red from crying. They clung to each other, trying to make sense of what was happening. For two 10-year-olds who had never been in trouble before, this felt like something out of a nightmare. Every sound, the clatter of keys, the distant murmur of voices, the sharp ring of a phone, made them flinch. They didn't understand why they were being treated this way or why no one seemed to believe them when they said they were just playing. An officer finally approached them, holding a phone. His tone was less harsh now, almost apologetic, as if he realized the situation might have gotten out of hand. "You can call your parents," he said, placing the device in front of them. Marcus hesitated for a moment, his fingers trembling as he reached for the phone. He wasn't sure what to say or how to explain everything that had happened, but deep down, he knew there was one person who could fix things: their dad. Derek Johnson wasn't just any father. He held an important job, one that carried weight and authority. Though Marcus and Malik didn't fully grasp the significance of their dad's role as the U.S. Attorney General, they understood enough to know he was someone people listened to. With shaking hands, Marcus dialed the number. It rang twice before. Derek answered, his voice calm but firm. "Hello," he said, expecting it to be a work-related call. Hearing his son's shaky voices on the other end immediately changed everything. "Dad," Marcus began, his voice breaking. "They took us to the police station." There was a long pause on the line, followed by a sharp intake of breath. Derek's heart sank as he processed what his son was saying. "What do you mean? They took you? Who did this? Are you okay?" Malik chimed in, his words tumbling out in a rush. "We were just playing, Dad. We had toy guns and some lady called the cops and now we're here, and they won't let us go." Derek's jaw tightened. He could hear the fear in his son's voices, and it ignited a protective fire inside him. No matter how busy he was or how high-ranking his position, nothing mattered more than his family. "Stay calm," he told them gently but firmly. "I'm going to take care of this. Just hang tight and don't say anything else until I get there." As soon as the call ended, Derek sprang into action. First, he contacted the local police department, demanding to speak directly with the chief of police. When he identified himself as the U.S. Attorney General, the tone of the conversation shifted instantly. The officer on the line grew nervous, stammering as he tried to explain the situation. Derek cut him off, his voice steely. "My sons are 10 years old. They were playing with toys. Arresting them is unacceptable, and I expect answers now." Word spread quickly through the ranks, and within minutes everyone at the precinct knew who the twins' father was. What had started as a routine arrest had suddenly turned into a high-profile incident. Meanwhile, back at the station, Marcus and Malcolm noticed a change in the atmosphere. Officers who had previously ignored them began hovering nearby, whispering urgently to one another. One of them even brought them water and offered to remove the handcuffs entirely. "Your dad's on his way," the officer said awkwardly, avoiding eye contact. The twins exchanged glances, unsure whether to feel relieved or even more confused. Why were these adults acting so differently now? Had their dad really made such a big difference? The news of the arrest traveled fast, not just within the police department, but also outside its walls. Someone leaked details of the incident to social media, and within hours, hashtags like #Justice for Marcus and Malik began trending nationwide. Videos taken by neighbors at the park showed the frightened boys being led away in handcuffs, sparking outrage among viewers. Comments flooded in, ranging from expressions of sympathy for the family to calls for accountability from law enforcement. People couldn't believe that two innocent children had been treated like criminals over a misunderstanding. As the story gained traction, reporters descended upon the quiet neighborhood, eager to uncover more details. Neighbors were interviewed, on camera sharing their shock and disbelief. Mrs. Thompson, the elderly woman who had made the initial 911 call, found herself at the center of attention. She appeared visibly shaken during interviews, insisting that she hadn't meant for things to escalate the way they did. "I thought they were real guns," she explained, her voice quivering. "I was scared. I didn't want anyone to get hurt." While some sympathized with her, others criticized her decision to involve the police without first verifying the situation. Back at the station, Derek arrived sooner than expected, his presence commanding immediate respect. He walked in with purpose, his suit immaculate and his expression unreadable. Officers scrambled to greet him, offering apologies and explanations. But Derek wasn't interested in excuses. He asked to see his sons right away, and when he finally laid eyes on Marcus and Malik, his composure cracked for a brief moment. Kneeling down to their level, he pulled them into a tight hug. "I'm here now," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Everything's going to be okay." Once he had reassured his sons, Derek turned his focus to the officers. He demanded a full account of what had happened from the initial report to the decision to arrest the boys. Each detail only fueled his frustration. "Do you realize how traumatic this has been for them?" he asked, his tone sharp. "They're children. Children don't belong in handcuffs unless they've committed a serious crime, and playing with toys doesn't qualify." The officers nodded nervously, aware that they were dealing with someone who not only outranked them, but also had the power to hold them accountable. Word of Derek's involvement reached the mayor's office, prompting swift action. A statement was issued acknowledging the incident and promising a thorough investigation. Meanwhile, Derek made it clear that he wouldn't let the matter rest. This wasn't just about his sons. It was about addressing systemic issues that allowed situations like this to happen in the first place. As he left the station with Marcus and Malik by his side, cameras flashed and microphones were thrust toward him. Reporters shouted questions, but Derek remained composed. "This isn't over," he said simply, his words carrying weight. "We need to ensure that no child ever has to go through what my sons experienced today." For Marcus and Malik, stepping out of the police station felt surreal. The bright sunlight and fresh air were a stark contrast to the cold, sterile environment they had endured for hours. Yet, despite their relief, they couldn't shake the memory of being treated like suspects. Clutching their father's hands tightly, they climbed into the car, ready to leave the ordeal behind. For now, little did they know, their story was only beginning to unfold, setting the stage for conversations that would ripple far beyond their small neighborhood. The days following the arrest of Marcus and Malik became a whirlwind of emotions, discussions, and actions that reverberated far beyond their small neighborhood. The incident had struck a nerve, not just locally but across the entire country. Social media buzzed with outrage as people shared videos, articles, and personal stories about similar encounters with law enforcement. The hashtags #Justice for Marcus and Malik and #Kids Not criminals trended for days, sparking debates about racial profiling, police accountability, and the treatment of children in such situations. Civil rights organizations quickly jumped into action, using the twins' story to highlight the urgent need for reform. Leaders from groups like the NAACP and ACLU held press conferences, calling for systemic changes in how police interact with communities of color. "This isn't an isolated incident," one advocate declared during a televised interview. "It's part of a larger pattern where Black children are disproportionately criminalized simply for existing." Their words resonated deeply with many, especially parents who feared what might happen if their own kids found themselves in a similar situation. Meanwhile, Derek Johnson faced immense pressure from all sides. As the U.S. Attorney General, his job was to uphold justice impartially, yet here he was dealing with a deeply personal matter involving his own family. Critics accused him of overstepping his authority, claiming he used his position to gain special treatment for his sons. Some even suggested that if Marcus and Malik hadn't been the children of someone so powerful, the outcome would have been much worse. On talk shows and opinion panels, commentators debated whether Derek's involvement undermined public trust in law enforcement or if it was justified given the circumstances. But Derek refused to let the criticism deter him. Instead, he leaned into the moment, seeing it as an opportunity to address issues that had long plagued the system. In interviews, he spoke candidly about the fear and frustration he felt when he heard his sons' voices on the phone that day. "I'm not just a father, I'm also someone tasked with ensuring fairness under the law," he said during a national address. What happened to Marcus and Malik should never happen to any child, regardless of their background. We need to do better. His words struck a chord with many Americans, particularly those who had experienced or witnessed similar injustices. Parents began sharing stories about their own run-ins with law enforcement, times when their children were unfairly targeted because of their race or appearance. A mother recounted how her teenage son was stopped while walking home from school simply because someone thought he looked suspicious. Another described the humiliation of having her young daughter questioned by police officers after being mistaken for a shoplifter at a grocery store. These stories painted a vivid picture of the challenges faced by marginalized communities and underscored the importance of addressing these systemic problems head-on. In response to the growing outcry, local officials scrambled to take action. The mayor of the city issued a statement condemning the arrest of Marcus and Malik, calling it a grave misunderstanding that highlighted broader issues within the police department. She announced the formation of a task force dedicated to reviewing policies related to interactions with minors and promised transparency throughout the process. Additionally, she ordered mandatory implicit bias training for all officers, emphasizing the need for empathy and cultural awareness in policing. Schools in the area also stepped up, partnering with advocacy groups to educate students about their rights and how to interact safely with law enforcement. Workshops were organized where experts taught kids practical strategies for staying calm and respectful during encounters with police. Teachers incorporated lessons on civil rights and social justice into their curriculums, encouraging students to think critically about fairness and equality. For Marcus and Malik, returning to class after everything that had happened was both comforting and challenging. While their classmates greeted them warmly, offering hugs and words of support, the memory of being handcuffed lingered in their minds. They struggled to focus on their studies, often zoning out as thoughts of that day crept back in. At home, Derek and Maya worked tirelessly to help their sons process the trauma. They sat down with Marcus and Malik multiple times, reassuring them that they weren't at fault and that the way they were treated wasn't a reflection of who they were. "You're good boys," Maya told them firmly one evening as they sat together in the living room. "Don't ever let anyone make you feel otherwise." Derek added, "Sometimes people make mistakes because they don't understand. But we can use this experience to teach others and make things better." To further drive that point home, the Johnson family decided to hold a town hall meeting in their community. The event drew hundreds of residents, filling the local auditorium to capacity. People came from all walks of life, young and old, black and white, rich and poor, united by a desire to create meaningful change. Derek opened the discussion by sharing his perspective as both a parent and a public servant. He acknowledged the pain and frustration many felt, but urged everyone to channel those emotions into constructive dialogue. "We're here today because we care about our community," he said. "Let's work together to find solutions that benefit everyone." The floor was then open to attendees, who shared their experiences, concerns, and ideas. One teenager spoke passionately about the need for more diversity within the police force, arguing that officers should reflect the communities they serve. An elderly man suggested implementing programs where officers could spend time with local youth, fostering relationships built on trust rather than suspicion. Others proposed installing body cameras on all officers and requiring de-escalation training to prevent incidents like the one involving Marcus and Malik from happening again. As the meeting progressed, a sense of hope began to emerge. For the first time in a long while, people felt heard and empowered to make a difference. Derek listened intently to every suggestion, jotting down notes and promising to bring these ideas to policymakers at higher levels. By the end of the night, the atmosphere was electric with possibility. Though the road ahead would undoubtedly be difficult, there was a collective determination to turn this painful chapter into an opportunity for growth and healing. For Marcus and Malik, watching their community come together was incredibly moving. It reminded them that they weren't alone, that countless people cared deeply about their well-being and were committed to ensuring no child would ever have to endure what they did. Slowly but surely, they began to heal, finding strength in their family, friends, and neighbors. And as the nation continued to grapple with the issues raised by their story, the twins' ordeal served as a powerful reminder of the work that still needed to be done, and the potential for positive change, when people unite for a common cause. In the weeks following the arrest of Marcus and Malik, the Johnson family found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of emotions, media attention, and public discourse. While the immediate crisis had passed, the scars, both visible and invisible, remained. For Marcus and Malik, returning to their everyday lives was anything but easy. The memory of being handcuffed and treated like criminals lingered in their minds, haunting their dreams and coloring their interactions with the world around them. Yet, amidst the pain and confusion, their parents, Derek and Maya, were determined to turn this harrowing experience into a teachable moment, not just for their sons but for everyone who had witnessed the incident. The first step in this process was helping Marcus and Malik make sense of what had happened. Sitting together one evening in their cozy living room, Derek and Maya gathered the twins for an open and honest conversation. "We know that what you went through was scary," Derek began, his voice steady yet gentle. "But it's important to understand why it happened and how we can use this experience to help others." Maya nodded, adding, "You didn't do anything wrong, sweethearts. Sometimes people make mistakes because they don't take the time to truly see or understand each other." Marcus and Malik listened intently, their wide eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and apprehension. They were still processing everything: the flashing lights, the cold metal of the handcuffs, the fear in their mother's voice when she realized they were gone. But as their parents spoke, something shifted inside them. Slowly, they began to see their ordeal not just as a personal tragedy, but as part of a larger issue affecting countless families across the country. "We want to make sure no kid ever feels the way you did," Derek said firmly, "and we need your help to do that." Inspired by their father's words, Marcus and Malik started to think about ways they could contribute to change. With their parents' guidance, they decided to share their story publicly, hoping it would spark meaningful conversations. Their first opportunity came during a school assembly organized by their principal. Standing nervously in front of their classmates, the twins recounted the events of that day, describing how frightened they had been and how unfair it felt to be treated like suspects. "We weren't doing anything bad," Malik emphasized, his voice trembling slightly. "We were, just playing like any other kids. Their honesty resonated deeply with their peers, many of whom approached them afterward to offer hugs and words of support. One classmate, a girl named Sophia, even shared her own story about being racially profiled while shopping with her family. "I know how it feels," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "It makes you feel like you don't belong, even though you're just being yourself." This exchange marked the beginning of a powerful connection between the twins and their community, a bond rooted in shared experiences and mutual understanding. Meanwhile, Derek and Maya continued to advocate for broader systemic changes. Recognizing the importance of education, they partnered with local schools and advocacy groups to develop workshops aimed at teaching children how to interact safely with law enforcement. These sessions combined practical advice with interactive activities, such as role-playing scenarios where students practiced staying calm and respectful during encounters with officers. Parents were also invited to participate, learning strategies for discussing sensitive topics like racism and bias with their kids. One particularly impactful workshop took place at Marcus and Malik's elementary school. Officers from the same department that had arrested the twins attended, eager to rebuild trust with the community. At first, tensions ran high. Some parents glared at the officers while others whispered angrily among themselves. But as the session unfolded, something remarkable happened. The officers opened up, sharing candid stories about the pressures and challenges of their job. "We don't always get it right," admitted Officer Ramirez, a veteran cop who had been present during the twins' arrest. "But we're here today because we want to do better." His vulnerability broke the ice, paving the way for heartfelt dialogue. Students asked questions ranging from, "Why do police carry guns?" to, "How can we tell if someone is really dangerous?" Officers responded thoughtfully, emphasizing the importance of communication and empathy. By the end of the workshop, several kids had exchanged phone numbers with the officers, vowing to stay in touch. It was a small but significant step toward bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community. As word of these efforts spread, the Johnson story gained renewed attention. National news outlets featured segments highlighting the family's commitment to turning pain into progress. In one interview, Derek reflected on the lessons he had learned throughout the ordeal. "This experience has shown me that justice isn't just about punishing wrongdoing," he explained. "It's about creating systems that protect and uplift everyone, especially those who are most vulnerable." Maya echoed his sentiments, stressing the importance of compassion and understanding. "If we can teach our children to see each other as human beings first, then maybe we can break the cycle of fear and mistrust." The twins' resilience inspired countless others to join the fight for change. Across the country, young activists rallied behind their cause, organizing marches, fundraisers, and awareness campaigns. Social media played a pivotal role in amplifying their message, with hashtags like #DTQuackKids deserve better trending regularly. Influencers and celebrities lent their voices to the movement, using their platforms to call for reforms in policing and education. Even toy manufacturers took notice, pledging to redesign products that could potentially endanger children. 4. Marcus and Malik, seeing their story resonate so widely, brought a sense of purpose and validation. Though they still carried the emotional weight of their arrest, they found comfort in knowing that their experience had sparked tangible improvements. "It's like we're superheroes now," Malik joked one afternoon, flexing his arms dramatically. Marcus laughed, nodding in agreement. "Yeah, but instead of fighting bad guys, we're fighting for fairness." Their newfound confidence extended beyond activism. At school, the twins became leaders among their peers, often mediating conflicts and encouraging kindness. When a new student joined their class and struggled to fit in, Marcus and Malik made it their mission to welcome him. They invited him to sit with them at lunch, introduced him to their friends, and even helped him with his homework. "Everyone deserves to feel safe and loved," Malik told their mom later that week. "That's what we're fighting for, right?" By embracing their roles as advocates, Marcus and Malik discovered a strength they hadn't known they possessed. Their journey wasn't without challenges. They still encountered moments of doubt and frustration, but they faced each obstacle with determination and grace. And through it all, they remained united as brothers, drawing strength from their shared experience and unwavering support from their family. As the months turned into years, the impact of their story continued to grow. Schools incorporated discussions about racial profiling and implicit bias into their curriculums. Police departments adopted new protocols for handling incidents involving minors, prioritizing de-escalation and communication over force. Communities came together to celebrate diversity and promote inclusivity, hosting festivals, art exhibits, and cultural exchanges that celebrated the richness of different backgrounds. Looking back, the Johnson family marveled at how far they had come. What had begun as a terrifying and unjust encounter had transformed into a catalyst for positive change. For Derek and Maya, it reinforced their belief in the power of love, resilience, and collective action. And for Marcus and Malik, it proved that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope and always a chance to make the world a little brighter. Months after the arrest of Marcus and Malik, the impact of their story continued to ripple across the nation. What had started as a frightening and unjust encounter between two young boys and law enforcement evolved into a movement that sparked meaningful conversations about justice, fairness, and accountability. The twins' experience became a symbol of resilience, a testament to how even in moments of adversity, hope and progress could emerge. One of the most significant outcomes of the incident was the introduction of new legislation aimed at preventing similar misunderstandings in the future. Lawmakers at both state and federal levels took notice of the public outcry and began drafting bills focused on regulating toy replicas. These laws required manufacturers to clearly label toys that resembled firearms and mandated bright orange, or neon-colored tips to distinguish them from real weapons. Retailers were also encouraged to educate customers about the potential risks of purchasing realistic-looking toys. While some critics argued that these measures placed too much responsibility on consumers, others praised the initiative as a step toward protecting children from unnecessary scrutiny. In addition to legislative changes, communities nationwide embraced grassroots efforts to foster better relationships between residents and police officers. Inspired by Derek Johnson's town hall meeting, other neighborhoods organized similar events where citizens could voice their concerns directly to local authorities. Officers participated in open forums, listening to stories and feedback without defensiveness. In one particularly moving session, a young girl stood up and asked, "Why do police always look so scary? Can't you smile more?" Her question brought laughter but also reflection, prompting many officers to rethink how they presented themselves on duty. Schools played a crucial role in this cultural shift as well. Educators collaborated with advocacy groups to develop programs designed to teach students about their rights and responsibilities when interacting with law enforcement. Role-playing exercises allowed kids to practice staying calm and respectful during encounters, while discussions explored topics like bias, empathy, and mutual respect. For Marcus and Malik, these lessons provided a sense of empowerment. Though they still carried the memory of being handcuffed, they now understood that knowledge and communication could help prevent misunderstandings in the future. The twins' story also inspired a wave of activism among young people. Across the country, student-led organizations sprang up, determined to challenge stereotypes and promote equality. High schoolers organized rallies, marched through city streets, and used social media platforms to amplify their message. One group created a campaign called See Us, which featured portraits of Black children alongside quotes describing their dreams and aspirations. The goal was simple yet powerful: to remind society that Black youth are not threats. They are individuals, with hopes, talents, and boundless potential. Marcus and Malik became honorary members of the campaign, attending events and sharing their experiences to inspire others. For Derek Johnson, the aftermath of the incident reinforced his commitment to advocating for systemic change. As U.S. Attorney General, he championed policies aimed at rebuilding trust between marginalized communities and law enforcement. He worked closely with lawmakers to allocate funding for community policing initiatives, ensuring officers had the resources needed to engage positively with residents. He also pushed for greater transparency in investigations involving minors, arguing that every child deserved to be treated fairly under the law. His efforts earned him praise from civil rights advocates, though he remained humble, often crediting his sons for inspiring him to push harder. At home, life slowly returned to normal for Marcus and Malik, but it was a different kind of normal. They were more aware of the world around them, understanding that their actions, no matter how innocent, might be perceived differently because of their race. Yet, instead of letting fear consume them, they chose to focus on the positive changes their story had ignited. Their parents encouraged them to channel their emotions into creativity, and soon the twins were writing poems and drawing pictures about justice and unity. Some of their artwork was displayed at local galleries, further amplifying their voices. Their mother, Maya, took on a leadership role within the community, organizing workshops for parents on how to talk to their children about racism and police interactions. She believed that education was key to breaking cycles of misunderstanding and mistrust. "We can't shield our kids from everything," she told attendees at one session, "but we can arm them with knowledge and love. That's how we protect them." As time passed, the Johnson family found solace in knowing that their ordeal had sparked a national conversation. The arresting officer involved in the incident faced disciplinary action, including suspension and mandatory training. While some felt this punishment wasn't severe enough, others saw it as an opportunity for growth, both for the officer and the department as a whole. The case served as a learning moment, reminding everyone involved of the importance of compassion and critical thinking in high-pressure situations. Looking back, Marcus and Malik realized that their experience, though painful, had ultimately strengthened their bond as brothers and as a family. They learned valuable lessons about courage, resilience, and standing up for what's right. And though they hoped no child would ever have to go through what they did, they took pride in knowing their story had made a difference. Years later, as teenagers, Marcus and Malik would reflect on that fateful day with a mix of sadness and gratitude. Sadness for the trauma they endured, but gratitude for the way it galvanized their community and inspired countless others to join the fight for justice. Their names became synonymous with progress, a reminder that even in the face of injustice, hope and determination could pave the way for a brighter future. And so, the legacy of Marcus and Malik lived on, not just in laws and policies, but in the hearts of those who believed in a world where every child could play freely, without fear of being judged by the color of their skin or the toys in their hands.